there were a lot of Joes around at the time. In fact, it's one of the two most common names of any man. The other one was Simon. And you look at the New Testament, you see how true it is. You see Joseph's, you see Shimon, Simon's. What about the name Yeshua? That was also common all over. Jesus was common. How about Mary? Miriam. Look at the New Testament. So, well, there's a Mary in the tomb. Oh, that's great proof. No, Mary, mother of Messiah. Mary, Miriam, Magdalene. Miriam, mother of Joseph. Mary, mother of James. Mary, mother of John. Mary of the book of Romans. They estimate about half the women in Israel were named either Salome or Mary at the time. So what does that mean? It'd be like going through the New York City phone book, searching under people named John, sons of a guy named Joe, and say, you find the first one, say, that's the guy. There are thousands of them. And the fact is that that's what this was based on. The theory is full of water. In 1996, the BBC aired this documentary, and the archaeologist who actually dug up the tomb, this is what he said about this theory. He said, they just want to get money. He said this thing is nonsense, is what he said. He said it was a regular middle-class burial cave. The names on it were common names among the Jewish people at the time. They said there's no significance. The inscription, Jesus, son of Joseph, or Yeshua bar Yosef, has been found on many tombs. There is no likelihood, this other one said, the one who did, that this is Jesus, the one that we know. They were a Galilean family with no ties to Jerusalem. This tomb has nothing to do with it. I think the theory is pretty much sunk. And finally, the professor of Jerusalem, in Jerusalem, Bar Ilan of the University of Jerusalem, said, this theory is impossible and it is nonsense. The theory is sunk. And I'll just throw one more thing in before we move on. The theory proposes he happened to live in Jerusalem. Jesus was hanging around Jerusalem, and everybody has to pretend that he's not there. What about Mary, his mother? She was clearly part of the New Testament community in Jerusalem, Book of Acts, later on. You mean to tell me that his own mother, a Jewish mother, is going to pretend that her son is not there? And the people are saying he's dead, but she's going to go along with it? A Jewish mother knows her son is alive and living nearby and never tries to get in touch? I mean, come on. She didn't say, listen, you never call me, you never write me, you never send me a postcard, what am I, chopped liver? I'm your mother. You're too big now to give your mother a call. I'm the big Messiah, you don't write, nothing, I could be dying. I could be falling on the kitchen and I can't get up. You're the big Mr. Messiah, Mr. Christ, and I'm just the Virgin Mary. I'm chopped liver. No. The theory is finished. At this point, Celine Dion is singing the theme song to the Titanic, and it's gone. A guy walks into a bar. He's not saved, because you wouldn't do it. He's a Jewish guy, not a believer. He sees an Oriental man sitting there. He taps him on the back. The guy turns around. He punches him in the face, goes down. He says, what was that for? He said, that, my friend, was for Pearl Harbor. He said, I'm not even Japanese. I'm Chinese. He said, Chinese, Japanese, it's the same thing. 2 minutes later, the Chinese man goes over, punches the Jewish guy in the face. It's down there. After he taps on the shoulder, well, first he says, what's your name? The guy says, I'm Goldberg. He punches him. Guy is down. He says, what was that for? He said, that, my friend, was for the Titanic. He said, the Titanic? I didn't sink the Titanic. He said, my name is Goldberg. He said, Goldberg, iceberg, it's all the same thing. This colossal theory sinks, this Titanic theory sinks on one of the most powerful forces on earth, the Jewish mother. Simple English, this theory that came out in World News 2 months ago doesn't fly, it doesn't hold up. Paul said, if Messiah be not raised, then your faith is in vain. If Messiah be not raised. It all happened on the day of the first fruit of Passover. The day of the beginning of new life. This is the most Jewish thing in the world. The harvest of Israel. Paul does something unique. He says, if Messiah has not been raised, let's put it to the test, guys. You want to check it out? Let's put the doubt, let's put the skeptic, let's put it on the line. It's okay. See, God is not afraid of tests. He says, taste and see. He says, test me and see. The resurrection is unique. It's the only faith in the world that the entire faith does not rest on some philosophical or theological premise, but it rests on a fact of history. An historical, flesh and blood fact happened or didn't. This morning we're going to do what the Apostle Paul did and put it to the test, either to see how weak or how strong it is. And in a unique way, I'm going to take this from the eyes of a skeptic. Going to look at it as a skeptic would, as if we had no faith at all, and see what happens nevertheless. As kind of the ground zero of this faith. Even if someone was an atheist and they take truly in account what happened. And see where we end up. We're going to presume from the beginning, presume even by the most severe skeptic, any serious skeptic historian, with two facts. One, there was a Jesus, there was a Yeshua. He was a first century rabbi whose life has greatly affected many other people. That is beyond dispute. He's the central figure of human history. A very simple fact. If any person could make up Jesus and the gospel and his words, they would claim it for themselves because they're too good. So human nature dictates that if you could come up with such a thing as him and not take credit, it means you couldn't. He exists. There is more historical evidence for him than most other figures of antiquity. There are more manuscripts ancient of the New Testament than any other manuscript of ancient history, period. By far. By far. And so the pains that the gospel writers, they take pains to record so much, detailed, so much about him. It's beyond any serious. If anybody tells you, you know what, he didn't exist, they don't know what they're talking. No serious historian would ever say that. Next, indisputable fact, even for an atheist, he was killed. How does even the greatest skeptic know that? Because nothing afterwards makes any sense if he weren't. If he were still alive, it couldn't happen. If the most contrary thing in the world to make up, as we just saw, you would never make this up. It would only happen. Your leader is crucified on an execution stake, and you're going to follow him and declare that? It's not good advertising. It's beyond any doubt that the most secular atheist, that he was crucified somewhere around the year 30 AD. There was a Yeshua. There was a movement. He was killed. Okay, now what do we do with that? That's there. That's absolute. Well, he was killed, all right? And how do we, and you know that happens to be the way the Romans killed Jewish people at the time. It's the last kind of death you would ever want or make up or ever proclaim. So Yeshua, Jesus of Nazareth, is hailed as Messiah, and then somehow he is killed. He is killed by the Romans because they're the ones who crucify. And then comes this message. So what happens now? Well, we know now if you had a leader, he's crucified, at that point you would be at the lowest point of your life. Because your hope is on him, and all of a sudden it's all over. Not only is it all over, he's arrested, he's betrayed, and now they are crushed. They have to be crushed. They're mourning for the one they love. On top of it, their hope in God is all over the place. It's like double, triple shock and mourning all on top. Everything is gone. And what do we know? What they actually did. That we know his followers went into hiding. It records in Matthew 26, it says when they came to arrest him even, it says they all left him. They all left him. They fled because they were afraid. Now, you'd never write that if it didn't happen, because who's going to make that up about yourself? That's terrible that they left him. They abandoned him, it says, but no one would write that unless it happened. That's another thing why you know the Bible is true. It has stuff like that in it. They went into hiding. Not one of them had any courage. By their own writing, no one could stand. Every single one abandoned him. It's human nature to make yourself look good. But obviously, if it's bad, they didn't make it up. The only one who stood with him at the hour of death was Yochanan, John, with the women. But at the time of Gethsemane, they were all gone anyway. Who stood there? Who was there? The women were the only one who were there. The men were in hiding. And now anybody who knows men, they would never make up stories that make the women look more courageous than they. To be fair, the woman would have been safer because they'd be less likely to be hunted down at the time. But still, there's persecution breaking loose. They just killed the leader. What's going to say they're not going to kill every one of them if they can kill him?